Hello. Who is ready for some 300-year in advance technology? This is so exciting. Dan Willis is a long-term naval whistleblower. Dan Willis was working in the days of dit, dot, dot Morse code and saw a gigantic craft come out of the ocean. And it just hasn't stopped looking ever since. He's a remarkable man, he lives a remarkable life, and he is completely devoted to the liberation of humanity and sharing the technology. Ladles and jelly beans, it gives me the greatest joy to bring you Dan Willis.
How wonderful. Hey, we're taking back our planet. Incredible. I'm so humbled to join all the incredible speakers. Well, here we go. 192 slides. Can you believe it? Okay. All right. Truly an honor to share with all of you the following four-part presentation. Part one is a review of disclosure history. Part two is about the matrix of perception that has hidden the truth. A lot of you are pretty savvy, and this is going to be kind of a little quick review for a lot of you. Part three will be on Pleiadian crystal science, based on communications over the last 2.5 years, directly from a Pleiadian scientist. Part four will be on how this advanced crystal science can be used to modify the matrix of reality. It's important to understand the hidden history of the past that has brought us to today, in which the disclosure of can empower us with this truth in order to transform from the deceptions perpetrated and create the future we desire in our heart, knowing the creative power within each of us. And today, we will use that creative power augmented with the advanced crystal technology knowledge from another world to help form that future. Part one, disclosure history. How I got involved in the disclosure history. Back in, a long time ago, 1969, I held a high-level top-secret security clearance in naval communications, received a secret classified priority message in code going to the Chief of Naval Operations from a U.S. Navy ship that was off the coast of Alaska. It was reporting a 70-foot diameter disk that emerged out of the ocean off port bow and shot off into space going over 7,000 miles per hour, according to ship's radar. Knowing this was very real, I was wondering, well, why haven't we had disclosure? Since 1955, presidents, CIA directors, heads of intelligence have all been denied access. In 1993, President Clinton wanted answers to the UFO question and was denied access. He was quoted by famed White House correspondent Sarah McClendon why he hasn't disclosed the UFO matter, saying, quote, "Sarah, there's a secret government in the government, and I don't control it." Clinton had his CIA director, James Woolsey, try to look into it, but the CIA director was denied access. Unable to gain access, he brought in Dr. Stephen Greer into a 3-hour meeting where Woolsey stated to Dr. Greer, quote, "I know this is real. I'm trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it." Becoming aware of the CIA directors being denied access, Dr. Greer then met with some military advisors who advised him to start collecting witnesses. Let me get some water here. Wonderful water. All right, that same year, myself, since 1969, I've been looking for answers, and I traveled to outside Area 51. First time Bob Lazar ever went public for a first-time meeting with a small group of researchers. No recordings were allowed, and of course I had my camcorder going and candidly recorded 2 hours of being hit with some pretty savvy questions. The decades that followed, Lazar's testimonies remained 100% consistent. What is significant about this event is that Area 51 base went into a complete lockdown condition due to these meetings and issued a NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, security advisory to base personnel with a distribution list of unacknowledged special access programs, such as listed as Cosmic Ops, Magi Ops. These were operations that reverse engineering the ET craft, such as those Lazar was working on. Dr. Greer somehow acquired that classified NRO document and brought it to a Pentagon meeting in 1997 with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. The admiral attempting to look into these USAPs was not only denied access, but he was threatened to drop the matter immediately or see an early retirement and lose rank. The admiral and his high level of constitutional authority, you can imagine, was mad as hell and told Dr. Greer, if he can bring his witnesses he's gathered since 1993 that are willing to testify under oath that he has his permission to go before the mainstream media to expose these illegal operations to the public. So by the year 2001, Dr. Greer had accumulated over 500 military intelligence witnesses and had his life threatened not to go before the media. Courageously, he brought 21 witnesses who each stated as they gave their testimony, they're willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing in front of the 22 cameras of the mainstream media of the world at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Here's an interesting side story. This is 2001. Here we are in year 2024. The public consciousness, awareness. Can you imagine one of the witnesses saying he's been to Area 51 and interacted with a disabled core extraterrestrial engine that had a plasmatic consciousness who's decided to cohabitate within his body? Can you imagine that, doing that? That man was David Adair. And they felt it was a little too much of a stretch for the public mind at that point. They needed a substitute. They needed a volunteer. Here I came. So my testimony was much more easy to digest. You know, UFOs coming out of water. You know, big deal. So you know, some of the things that were disclosed back in that day was, and this is 23 years ago, our legal government is being denied access, including presidents, CIA directors, heads of intelligence, rogue operations taking in billions, that we have the scientists that can prove we have zero-point energy technologies. A lunar base on the far side of the moon was visually witnessed. Astronauts are sworn to secrecy about the ET craft they saw when they landed on the moon back in 1969, and that NASA sanitizes the UFO photos before releasing to the public. 57 different extraterrestrial species had been cataloged by 1989. ET craft has shut down multiple nuclear weapons. U.S. Navy ships reporting disc-shaped craft coming out of the ocean. Secret reports, fully operational alien reproduction vehicles built back in the 1950s were witnessed. Werner von Braun disclosed in his deathbed testimony that a series of false flag scenarios had been pre-planned in advance. The next event was terrorists, which actually happened as predicted 4 months later on 9/11, with the final planned event to be a false flag alien invasion event, and much more. I thought, how could this not be a world-changing event with this much media coverage? The Bush administration, of course, denied the requested congressional hearing. You have to think, if we had anti-gravity vehicles developed back in the 1950s, this is an illustration by my fellow witness friend Mark McCandish, who was said to have committed suicide before he was able to testify at the 2021 UFO UAP hearing, that we had anti-gravity craft back in the 1950s. Then, like the terrorist event with that technology, they'd be able to pull off a planned fake alien invasion today while the government continues to claim, oh, we don't have anti-gravity technology, and that we've had no success in reverse engineering ET craft, while at the same time claiming ET craft are a national security threat, all of which indicates a deceptive narrative toward an agenda. This event inspired a teaching professor interesting, Dr. Michael Salla, You know, I love that he took all his students that he was teaching and actually exposed them to the 2001 witness testimonies. None of them, most of them didn't really, they thought people were making stuff up. So you can tell the mentality, not like today, couldn't really accept even these, you know, what we're disclosing today, what Elena disclosed, what Alex Collier disclosed. You know, you all get it, you know, but back then it was too much of a stretch. But I'm so grateful for this man for educating the public and staying with it, and that he's today the world-recognized authority on exopolitics. And a computer hacker wanted to find out the truth for himself, so he hacked into the computers to find out. And the Bush administration wanted to imprison him for 70 years for revealing the US Navy's solar warden space program in the computer systems. Myself, being an ex-ABC newsman, I observed how the media was keeping the full message from the public. CNN and the rest of the mainstream media did in lockstep what is called a limited hangout, as to not reveal these illegal secret government operations which Admiral Wilson wanted disclosed. Whoa. So, CBS. They were up in Los Angeles, I was in San Diego, they wanted to interview me, I refused, because I saw what the rest of the media did with it, you know. And unless I could state on the air, I made them promise that we have the scientists that can prove we have zero-point energy to solve the energy crisis. They promised. Afterward, the producer apologized. He said, I never had this happen before, but the higher executives made her cut that part out. So it makes you wonder, who is behind controlling the public's perceptions? Part 2, the matrix of perception. Someone once said, quote, when a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and its speaker a raving lunatic. You know, being both a witness and an ex-ABC newsman, a media company out of Hollywood, they wanted me to write an article. I figured I'd be a good candidate to write an article on the control of media with the UFO ET matter. Myself, wanting answers, I gladly accepted. The article was titled, quote, Who Controls the Agreed-Upon Reality Through the Mainstream Media and Why They Fear Disclosing the Truth About the Extraterrestrial Reality. To find this answer, I began to research back through the history at the beginning of the 20th century to present day based on witness testimonies and authenticated documents in which a hidden history that read like science fiction began to reveal itself. Now, this is kind of a quick refresher for a lot of you. But back in the early 30s, the Draco of the Sakar Empire violated the Prime Directive and gave the Nazi SS advanced technology and entered into an alliance with them. Before the end of the war, recovered documents show that the Nazis had a secret plan called Weltanschauungskrieg, which translates to worldview warfare. This plan was to infiltrate into the United States and create a, quote, matrix of perception to hide their secret operations, as the JFK files revealed in 2017. Hitler, Himmler, 250,000 Germans, the Reich top scientists, and over 100 U-boats escaped to Antarctic Base 211 in Argentina to operate from the underground. Allen Dulles, infamous for his role in this plan, cuts a deal with Major General Reinhard Gehlen, head of Nazi intelligence, to bring in thousands of Nazi spies into the OSS, which turned into today's CIA, whose creation was initiated by Dulles. Operation Paperclip, Allen Dulles against President Truman's orders, cleanses the dossiers of many Nazis that were once classified, a menace to the security of the United States. In order to hide the Nazi escape and infiltration from future generations studying history, the Rockefeller Foundation, in alliance with the Nazis, had the history of World War II rewritten. As the Nuremberg trials ended, which established the extremely important international law of informed consent, shout out to Dr. Lee Merritt and Dr. Christiane Northrup for all your wonderful exposure of the corruption My great-grandfather was the president of a homeopathic medical society in the early 1900s. It was going up against Rockefeller, so I have it in my DNA to want to see this whole corrupt medical establishment, revamped. 1,600 former Nazi scientists, doctors, including men responsible for murder, human experimentation, some that never stood trial, are brought into the newly formed Center of Disease Control. After the Nuremberg trials of Nazi Germany, I.G. Farben, Hitler's largest financial backer, was split into being part of 13 pharmaceutical corporations that are big pharma today. According to William Tompkins, a very credible witness, the Nazi paperclip scientists took over control of the highest positions in the U.S. pharmaceutical industry and are in their control today. The Roswell, New Mexico crash was a Nebu craft, as Elena has revealed, was a Trojan horse to prepare for the invasion of Earth by enticing a future technology exchange. Following this, President Truman has Secretary Forrestal set up the first MJ-12 group, also the National Security Act, the U.S. Air Force, and the CIA. Xavier Dorsch, this is how the deep underground military bases started. He was Nazi Germany's top underground base expert working on a Project Paperclip. Starts tunneling in New Mexico for the U.S. underground plant program, creating a network of interlinked deep underground military bases. Yeah, need hydration. I better put it over here. James Forrestal sends Admiral Byrd to Antarctica, Operation High Jump. They attack the Nazi base, but is totally defeated by the Nazis' advanced anti-gravity directed energy weapons technology. James Forrestal, wanting to alert the public of the Nazi threat from Antarctica, is murdered by MJ-12, throwing him out of the hospital window. The MJ-12 annual report revealed this action by saying, quote, "The untimely death of Secretary Forrestal was deemed necessary and regrettable." In order to control the perceptions of the public, Alan Dulles starts Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA is paying 400 media journalists to form the public's perceptions. In order to hinder our technological advancement, while the Nazi breakaway civilization greatly advanced, the Invention Secrecy Act that was enacted under the guise of protecting our national security has suppressed thousands of inventions, such as, interestingly, anti-gravity, free energy, medical break, so much more. To intimidate the Truman and Eisenhower administrations, they fly their advanced technology over the Capitol building. The CIA then forms of course, the Robinson panel to deny the UFO ET reality to the public, to make them think, there's nothing to this. 1954, President Eisenhower met with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, who warned him about the deceptive Nebu rays. Eisenhower, according to witness testimonies that were there, had planned for public disclosure on radio and television in May that year. Newly formed MJ-12 group, headed by none other than Alan Dulles, circumvents President Eisenhower and signs a treaty with the Nebu Grays to give consent to abduct our citizens so they can carry out their hybrid program underground in exchange for some technology. Instead of Eisenhower's planned disclosure in May, former Nazi SS officer Prince Bernhard sets up the yearly secret Bilderberg meetings that set up a hidden secret agenda and work in coordination in controlling the mainstream media. Today, the Bilderberg meetings, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, working with psychological think tanks, collaborate with their assets on forming the public's perceptions. Eisenhower had lost control by 1955 and had to enter into a surrender agreement with the Nazis, the Nebu alliance. From this point forward, our legal constitutional government has been denied access to these secret operations. In 1957, Professor Heinz Eisnick of the University of London wrote a letter insinuating there's this gigantic conspiracy involving 30 major universities all over the world, hundreds of highly respected scientists who silenced the truth about what they knew about the powers of human consciousness to affect reality. Secret societies know that human consciousness co-creates reality based on what the mind believes to be true and real. This process is amplified when instilled in the collective consciousness of the masses through the media. They are projecting what they want in your mind so that you co-creatively build that reality in support of their agenda. Secret society members, such as 33rd Degree Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Skull and Bones, and others, have a vast network of individuals placed in key influential positions, such as US presidents, world leaders, intelligence, military, media, and entertainment. You know, it's interesting, as Dr. Lee Merritt brought out about the bloodline of the long line of presidents, and also the long line of presidents that are all involved in secret societies. It's interesting, Newt Gingrich, who was the former House Speaker, said that they're afraid of President Trump because he hasn't been initiated into the secret societies, and that they can't control him. So many notable figures, and you have Alan Dulles, Heinrich Himmler, Walt Disney. You've got the Rockefellers. You've got 3 generations of the Bush families. You've got Kissinger. J. Edgar Hoover, and CIA Director William Casey, who once famously said, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." All right, 1958, NASA is created, and guess what? Run by a former Nazi SS officer, Dr. Kurt DeBus, whose purpose is apparently to keep our country believing we need rockets to overcome gravity, whereas the Nazis kept secret that they already achieved anti-gravity back in 1954. Yeah, these slides. Anyway. President Eisenhower attempted to warn the public on television about the unwarranted influences that had infiltrated into the military-industrial complex by the Fourth Reich. President John F. Kennedy sends a top-secret memo to the CIA director to release the UFO files. This triggers an MJ-12 assassination directive that was written by Alan Dulles. 10 days later, he's assassinated. Alan Dulles then heads the Warren Commission, which made up of a majority of 33rd degree Freemasons. By the way, the 33rd degree, and if you're a Freemason, there's nothing you can do to reach the 33rd degree. You can only go up to the 32nd degree. It's an honorary degree. You have to be selected to be a 33rd degree Freemason. So, and the way the system works, the hierarchy is that the higher levels give orders to the lower levels. So, little insight on the 33rd degree. And of course, they concluded that there was no conspiracy. The CIA afterwards sent a secret dispatch to all its agents to label anyone who challenges the official narrative as, quote, a conspiracy theorist, to discredit them, a term still widely used today. In 1983, the CIA began top secret meetings excuse me, in Sun Valley, Idaho, to consolidate media control from 50 down to only 6 media corporations in order to centrally control the mainstream media. Today, we continue to have infiltration over several generations of a domestic enemy that is centrally controlling our information systems using psychological warfare to support an agenda that is against an unsuspecting public. But many minds, obviously, are now starting to see this fact. Once you can see how the infiltration occurred and how the matrix of perception was created, then the propaganda that hid the truth is then destroyed by the disclosure of the truth. Current disclosure conclusions. It's the 1940s. Thank you, Galactic Federation. Fortunately, in the interest of balance, as the Prime Directive allows, the Galactic Federation of Worlds since the 1940s working behind the scenes with the US Navy to create the Solar War and Space program. Back in 2001, the centralized control of the mainstream media by the intelligence agencies, which continues to this day, effectively sanitized disclosure to the public of what the information that Admiral Wilson wanted to disclose of these illegal secret operations. Since 2021, thank God, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, working together with the Earth Alliance, have removed the Nebu-Sakar Nazi alliance from our solar system, which President Eisenhower lost control to back in 1955. Okay. All right, now we go into the crystal science. Okay, we got that over with. Okay, in 1977, I had a Kundalini opening experience and interaction with a being. The being had an incredible amount of love, incredible energy, coming from its eyes, and projected a sphere in space to convey telepathically the geometrical structure of the matrix in relationship to consciousness. You know, this was, I didn't even know what platonic solids were. I didn't know about nested geometries, or this is all new to me. Although this is totally new, over the decades that followed, I found much of what the being conveyed to have many scientific indicators as being valid to this day. Elena Danaan later identified this being as an emether. This illustration is from her incredible book, A Gift from the Stars, that details 110 extraterrestrial races that she actually saw in the database of the Galactic Federation of Worlds and reproduced. Just recently, this year, I learned that this experience I had back in 1977 from our contact with Jen Han Eredyon regarding this, saying that the emether are part of a science transfer program to Terra, and that the emether initiated this contact to provide me with a science understanding to be able to pass on to the Terrans in the future. That's what I'm doing. It appeared that quartz crystals held a key to understanding the structure of the matrix and the interface with consciousness. So in the early 1980s, I sought out Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was IBM's senior scientist, and was planning on setting up a laboratory to research crystals after he retired, and he invited me to be a research associate. The first day I met with him, I'll never forget this, he visually dematerialized a tumor in front of a doctor and myself using a specially cut crystal with breath and the technique that he developed. Dr. Vogel's research into the realm of quartz crystals evolved from his early experience as man-to-plant communications and seeking a manner of cohering the energies of mind through a crystal. He received in a dream the image of a Kabbalistic tree of life showing a pattern of a dipyramidal crystal form. I delivered to him, directly from the mines, and all the way to Arkansas, to San Jose, a large amount of crystals for the first to be cut in his garage for over 24 medical doctors he was training. Marcel started experimenting with 4 sides and then continued to add more sides. The idea was to increase the vortex spin within the crystal. Little did he know, and he would have loved to have known, that when the crystal is cut in perfect alignment with the natural 6-sided hexagonal lattice structure, is how the Pleiadians form their crystals to create a very special effect within the crystal. Dr. Marcel Vogel trained many doctors to successfully use his techniques in their practice. And we researched ancient quartz crystal artifacts. The Mitchell-Hedges skull, which Dr. Sala recently was working with, focused his mind into the skull to learn what the function of it was, and he saw that it was an information transfer device. Marcel said, quote, he saw a temple with a hole in the ceiling. The skull set on a pedestal directly under this hole, where a priest with a shaved head robed in white, wearing a medallion of gold inscribed with the image of the sun and its rays. The priest waited for the light of the sun to strike the skull, illuminating it. An elderly person with a shaved head came into the temple. The priest put his left hand on the head of the elderly man and his right hand on the crystal skull, drew in his breath, pulsed his breath. The information that was in the mind of the elderly man was now transferred into the crystal skull. He left in his place a young girl, also dressed in white. The priest reversed his hands. He put his left hand on the skull and his right hand on the head of the young girl, drew in his breath, pulsed his breath. That knowledge that was contained in the crystal skull was now in the mind of the young girl. This supports what I learned in the future from Pleiadian scientist Jen Han Eredyon, in that quartz crystals can indeed embed consciousness, and that the pulsed breath can direct consciousness. The crystal sphere in the Pyramid of Atlantis. I'll just keep this in my hand. Dr. Ray Brown was treasure diving in the waters of the Bahamas and discovered after a storm an underwater pyramid in which he entered a room that was illuminated from an unknown source. The room had 7 chairs surrounding a pedestal with 2 hands holding a quartz crystal sphere. Above the sphere, coming down from the ceiling, a golden rod that terminated with a red crystal. Dr. Vogel said he felt a tremendous energy source coming from the crystal sphere, as I did as well. My brother happened to stay with Dr. Brown for 2 weeks and took detailed notes of what the room looked like, which has never been previously disclosed to the public until today. Elena Danan, incredibly, beautifully, took my brother's notes and recreated this image you're seeing of the pyramid room based on my brother's detailed notes. One feature of the room had a large falcon on the wall holding the sun in its talons with 14 gemstones on its chest, and on each of its wings had 7 figures sitting on them. From Elena's vast professional archaeological knowledge and her own past life memories of Atlantis, she believes this could be the council meeting room of the Apakalu, Inki's 7 elite scientists. The red crystal on the end of the golden rod is a type of red mercury ore crystal which activates the crystal's mechanism to create a holographic projection. Pleiadian scientist Jen Han Eredyon added, quote, "This crystal sphere that was found in the remains of the Atla civilization," that was the capital city of Atlantis. "It was found in a room with seats around it. The people focused their consciousness on the central sphere, sending pulse waves of conscious thought, and the vortex opened. It was a communicator to home." One of the projects I worked on with Marcel was a type of holographic camera that could tune backwards and forwards in time. It was patented in 1955 and thousands of photos were taken. My assignment was to develop the technology to be able to view the projected holographic pattern on a real-time display rather than on a photographic plate. I finally was able to get these images. It took me forever to try to find these. An example of using a DNA from a drop of blood from a pregnant mother who could be at any remote distance, since a holographic field within her blood is a quantum entangled as a fractal representation of the mother's entire holographic field. Tuning through time with the device's time spiral, you could see her future pregnancy progression at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and 6 months into the future. Showing plant radiations, you could see the flower of a remedy emanating from a homeopathic pill, taking a seed of a lily flower, tuning into its future growth cycles. You could see its bulb and its flowering cycles into the future. Although primitive in comparison to the advanced extraterrestrial medical holographic devices, this device substantiated on our planet back in the 1950s that the holographic field has a time vector which is tunable. A few of the many examples showing that this advanced technology can tune through time is real and currently in use in the secret space program and by other civilizations. See, I won't repeat what Alex Collier fully described, but basically I thought it interesting that the Andromedans call it a camera that can tune through the whole and find slides where your body was optimal, which they holographically project, and then the body morphs into that new pattern at a time when your body was optimal. Pleiadian scientist Jen Han Eredyon also explains how the medbeds function. He says, quote, "Some medbed technology use fractal holographic technology. Let me explain. A fractal core formula of the tissue to repair is recorded, and the perfect unaltered geometrical pattern is reconstructed and superimposed on the damaged pattern. The old pattern instinctively pairs and morphs into the new pattern because the universe tends to perfection. It is a fractal holographic repairing. On December 16, 2022, High Commander Eredyon said to Elena Danaan, who was using a time-looking device on board the Metaton ship to view 20 years into the future, he said, quote, "All these technologies that you saw existing 20 years from now are being produced now in this precise moment. Everything is real. Everything exists already. It's ready for when the people of Terra are ready. And a new leader will come, and the dark will vanish." Because the light will rise. Get emotional here, read this. All the real leaders will rise all over the planet, and it is now, very soon, the time when you will stand up, and the hand that we held to you, you finally take it. We are family. In March of 2023, Elena was physically taken with Jen Han Eredyon to see the massive medbed factories inside of a moon base to potentially be available to our planet at a future date that would dramatically change our current medical systems. In the future, I discovered I was to learn a lot more about crystals from another scientist from another world that will greatly expand upon what Dr. Marcel Vogel initially pioneered. After writing an article about media control on the extraterrestrial issue, it inspired me to keep researching witness testimony. Once you start on this, just like all of you, once you start to realize the hidden truth, you can't stop looking for the truth, it's addictive. So I kept researching witness testimonies to find more corroborating evidence to get a larger, clear picture of what's been hidden. There became a growing number of witnesses becoming public that claimed to have a total memory recall of their service within a secret space program. The secret space programs utilize advanced extraterrestrial drive technology and can tune through the holographic field of time to be able to enlist a personnel for a 20-year tour of duty in space. At the end of enlistment, they are brought back in time and their body restored as it was at the entry point of their enlistment, and their memories erased as though nothing ever happened. But some were having total memory recall. In researching the testimonies of those who claim to be within the secret space programs as they became public over the years, such as Jean-Charles Moyen, who we recently discovered was the very first in 1992, who recorded his testimony on a major French radio station broadcast when he was 23 years old. Followed by acknowledgement to my dear friend. Then you have followed by others: Michael Ralph, Naira Isley, Andrew Pasazio, Randy Kramer, Tony Rodriguez, William Tompkins, Michael Gerloff, Emery Smith, Jason Rice, several others. And, also got a salute to JP. Due to the very nature of the secret space programs, witnesses are rarely ever able to bring solid evidence to support their testimony. Exceptions have been John Charles Moyen, Tony Rodriguez, and William Tompkins, and JP with his photographic evidence. Because of this nature of the secret space program, it can be easily exploited by dark agents who wish to counter disclosure by these witnesses, since anyone can assemble different corroborating elements from multiple testimonies in order to gain some associated credibility, and then fabricate other elements for an agenda to attempt to discredit credible witnesses, or simply muddy the waters to hide the truth. These individuals could be called counter-disclosure assets. They seek the counter-disclosure of the truth, and especially those who are most credible in revealing the truth. It is they who they focus their attack on. as public disclosure of the truth is a threat to maintain their agenda, which requires secrecy and deception. One individual has been revealing a lot of truth and therefore has been an ongoing target for these agents, in which even a major aerospace corporation, according to credible witness testimony, has been actively seeking to attempt to discredit this person. You know who that is. That person is Elena Danaan. Unlike other secret space program witnesses, due to previous MJ-12 agreements, Elena was abducted by the Nibu when she was 9 years old and then rescued by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, who had to repurpose the Nibu tracking implant to be tuned to a secure military channel of the Federation, utilizing quantum communication technology to communicate with her contact, High Commander Jen Han Eredyon. Given this highly unique situation to be a communication bridge between the personnel of the Galactic Federation and the people of our planet, she has graciously and bravely taken on the task of the emissary for the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And I mean bravely. Elena's information she has shared, unlike counter-disclosure assets, can provide absolutely no corroborating evidence, has on the contrary an ongoing history revealing information that no one without direct knowledge could possibly know. Then later that information becomes public knowledge and verified, thus continuing to establish her credibility. Of the, I've been taking note of the literally dozens of corroborating elements of Elena's information. There are, for example, 3 that were scientifically verified by NASA afterwards, in which there is no way that someone could fabricate without having valid direct knowledge. In 2022, in February, Elena identified 3 planets in Proxima Centauri, 2 years before verified by NASA. In March, Jen Han says, watch for activity on Neptune to be revealed, and then 2 weeks later, NASA substantiated it. In April, Jen Han reports a severe quake on Mars. 1 week later, NASA reports the largest quake ever detected on our solar system on Mars. In the year 2022, Elena invited me on her show. She knew I'd worked with Dr. Marcel Vogel researching crystal technology. On the show, Elena shared with me that her contact, Jen Han Eredyon, has a younger brother, Jen Han Eredyon, who is going to a university in the Pleiades to be a terraformer, or what they call a star maker. And that he has an advanced understanding of the science of crystals, and that we could communicate with him via Elena's quantum communication implant. You can imagine my excitement for being able to have an exchange with this incredible being. Jen Han has since graduated as a star maker, and he's currently performing terraforming operations now on the planet Mars. April 2022, our first communication exchange, almost 2.5 years ago, began with Jen Han Eredyon. What I've learned, this incredible illustration by Elena of Atlantis, what I learned from Jen Han, why I may have an interest in the subject, Jen Han has access to devices that can read a person's consciousness field and view their past lives, and it revealed to me, at the time of Atlantis, I was once a scientist, an attendant of one of the crystal generators in the capital city of Atla, and one of my fields of expertise, specialties, was, of all things, medical holographic science. Now, after 2 years of question and answer with Jen Han, in accordance with the Prime Directive, of course, this has been what we've learned in some of the basic, you understand where we are, they're 300 years ahead of us, fundamentals of the science. Jen Han has shared the following. These are based on his words. I kind of abbreviated so we can make it in 60 minutes. Quartz crystals. The core holographic structure of quartz, the purest material in the universe, is the most elaborate state of matter. It's so elaborate that it embeds consciousness. Remember the crystal skull? The crystal is a bridge because it exists in all dimensions at a time. Tetrahedral fractal geometry is the secret of the universe, the geometry of thought. Everything in the created universe is constructed on a geometrical, holographic structure. Thought can reshape the holographic grid of reality because thoughts are complex geometrical patterns. That's exactly what Dr. Marcel Vogel said. The crystal will bridge the new pattern onto the existing ones, and if the impulse is strong enough, the new pattern will force themselves onto the old, and the old will morph into the new. Breath. Breath carries thoughts. Short, precise, powerful breaths, through your nose, like Dr. Christiane Northrup showed, are better than a long one. In a long one, the energy intention gets absorbed by the ether. Dr. Marcel Vogel confirmed this. He was able to communicate to a plant on the other side of our planet that in Prague, Czechoslovakia, from San Jose, with pulse breath and cause a script chart to go. He found this to be the most effective. It's like a Kundalini breath of fire pulse. Love. The frequency of love is the connecting pulse between all living things in the universe, like all of us. When you intend love into a crystal, you activate its transcending capacity. When on top of this action, you embed a target by visualization. It bridges you to it easily because love is a secure channel. Because of the high frequency, it prevents dissonance. Quartz, crystal, water, love are all built on the same core fractal formula. This is why they all interface naturally. Water is universally resonant. This has been shown in ice core samples taken in Antarctica, which reveal all the formation of the major crystallographic forms. The reason why only love can resonate into the higher density, Jen Han says, quote, "Dissonance cannot attune with an ordered state of geometrical resonance," unquote. And this is visually illustrated in Dr. Masaru Emoto's water crystallization photos showing how dissonant energies cannot take form. Frill. Jen Han says, "The frill from source is the most powerful energy you can ever imagine to harness. Of course, when the singularity of the vortex is triggered in the crystal, and when it bridges to source, frill comes from it. Frill is the energy created from gravity waves in what you name the ether. These gravity waves are also named compression waves. Frill-powered spacecraft using crystals. Remember Star Trek, there's like so much soft disclosure. A dynamic impulse in the ether creates compression waves which generate frill. Crystals in the central core store and convert this power into the red ionized mercury plasma in the dual perpendicular toroids of the ship's anti-gravity propulsion system." And now, for some information on ether physics basics from our science team member from Paris, France, scientist Chris Sassone. Until the end of the 19th century, vacuum was supposed to be filled with ether. Then Einstein introduced a special theory of relativity in 1905 where the speed of light is constant and the vacuum is etherless. Discussions we've had with Jen Han Eredyon shows that ether really exists and is the basic brick of the universe. This was already discovered by Nikola Tesla as early as 1892. Particles are vortices of ether. Light is a wave in the ether, and energy is equivalent to the movement. Gravity is an acceleration of the ether. An ether wind is a variable pressure field, and the speed of light varies depending on the pressure of the vacuum. This was also confirmed by Jen Han. The ether wind, due to gravity, converges into matter and is transformed into compression waves, and that the mass is the drag coefficient in the vacuum. Gravity shielding can be done by an advanced spacecraft thanks to artificial ether vortex created by the ionized mercury rotating at a very high speed. This has a double effect to cancel both local gravity and mass. Electrogravitic propulsion consists in sending high potential electric bursts into the vacuum to locally change the vacuum pressure. The craft then surfs on its own wave of pressure difference in the vacuum. Thank you, scientist Chris Sassone. Frill generators on the planet Era. Jen Han said, Quote, on my home world, we have power generators, such as those you know from Atla, referring to my previous past life in Atlantis, which I'm trying to recall all the details. I wish I could converse with you directly, face to face. You know, Elena is relaying this. How exhilarating it would be. Anyway, on Era, we do have central power plants, pyramidal power plants with a tall natural crystal in the central core. The frill harvested is collected in the top of the pyramid and resonated, or you may understand the term, teleported to smaller devices that we name. They don't use wires like we do. Secondary generators. These transpond the frill for and towards the power web of our cities. In the countryside settings, each house can choose to have its own small replica of the big pyramid generators, or we can have a generator that supplies the whole community. Our sister, Jen Han Eredyon, works as an attendant. She is part of the maintenance team on Era. She is Thor Han and Jen Han's elder sister. She is, you know, according to Earth years, approximately 160 years old. They age better than us. Elena was shown a frill generator crystal within a pyramid where the central core crystal is wrapped in double coils. We received this gift from their world. With authorization of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, Jen Han Eredyon has shared the technical construction details to create for the first time a frill generator crystal here on our planet Terra. The torsion fields conjugating within the crystal field to release the frill. These two coils of silver and copper are at 90 degrees perpendicular to each other. The two torsion fields alternate pulses at 4096 Hertz, which is a resonant frequency of quartz, to release the frill. Last year, at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference, thanks to Danny, with our science team of Chris Asone and Kent Noonan, we presented to the people of our planet the first operational frill generator crystal that we created as a team. Chris, Kent, stand up and get acknowledged for all the work you've done. They will, by the way, after this presentation, many people want to feel the frill. Keep in mind, don't replicate it yet. We're still developing it. The level needs to be optimized. We have other technology we received, which is fully operational, though, and so you can feel the energy after the conference. Okay, this is frill crystal technology for the first time on our planet since the ancient days of Atlantis. This was the first prototype made on Earth. You have, you know, made in USA, you know, we have made in Earth. The following are a few potential applications of this knowledge. One, the frill generator crystal. It's currently being optimized for frill generation, so we're developing it further. It is operational, but it needs more optimization. This is technology that powers the cities on the planet Era. At this time, we're not authorized to seek electrical power generation of the frill energy, but we are allowed to utilize the frill that is being generated for beneficial applications on our planet. Quotes by Jen Han regarding these beneficial applications. Quote, frill modifies matter by reorganizing atomic bonds in what is dissonant. That is to say, in a simpler way, that frill can heal. Frill regenerates the cells by invigorating and strengthening the bonds between the particles that compose it. With frill-charged water, you can drink this water and bathe with it. This water heals. It can repair disharmonics in the body. It extends youth. Plants and other biological life forms, such as humans, naturally feed a frill that is present in the surrounding ether, as you call it. Increasing the frill supply has not only an energizing effect, it also heals. When there is a wound or disease, the frill level is weak. Potential applications, health and well-being, as well as, imagine, feeding agricultural fields with frill. The Reality Modulator, kind of short for the Reality Transflux Modulator, is Pleiadian reality shaping technology. This allows, through consciousness interface, This is like consciousness interactive technology, with an activated open vortex eye of the crystal to be able to modify the holographic matrix and alter reality, which I will explain later in detail. Potential applications, using your creative consciousness, envision a desired reality to come into physical manifestation using the crystal's open singularity vortex of the void to change the holographic matrix of reality. Examples. In healing oneself, you can visualize a more healthy, optimized avatar of yourself to be superimposed onto your current avatar. As the universe tends to perfection, as Jen Han said earlier, the healthier pattern will be supported to morph into the physical reality. Or, to positively affect the planetary matrix morphogenic field, you can envision a type of world in your heart you'd like to see manifested. Crystal healing work. Expanding upon the legacy of pioneering work of Dr. Marcel Vogel, now crystal healing work has the ability to more effectively restructure the holographic matrix. And Elena and I are doing a series of crystal classes. ElenaDanan.org or marcelvogel.org has links to these classes. The first two classes was selecting a crystal, the next one was how to clear a crystal, which is very important, which is the next subject. Developed by our science team member, Kent Noonan, this device is now available and sends a highly precise frequency of 4096 Hertz. It was verified to be effective by UNA, the emissary for the Intergalactic Confederation, to fully clear all the imprints within the quartz crystal lattice structure. This is essential when you're doing work with crystals. You have to erase what you were doing previously, so it's now a clean instrument to use. Water clearing device. This frequency, 4096 Hertz, can also be used to clear water to be healthful and is currently being researched. And my contacts information on marcelvogel.org. Any scientists that want to take and, there's only 3 of us in our science team, so the more people that can take this information and develop it further is always welcome. This is a gift from their world to ours. Crystal frill charger. Another potential application brings the crystal to frill saturation to be absorbed into the body for a healthful effect. But you must be cautious, as the crystal can implode and transcend matter and density if you don't know what you're doing. Frill exercise to repair DNA. This exercise can transmute DNA into a stable state of auto-regeneration. It's a simple exercise of infusing frill into your body, into your heart vortex, and it's explained on the website. These potential applications, based on our current understanding of their technology, is undergoing further research and development, and is currently available to everyone as open source, as this knowledge has been given as a gift from their world to ours. So, of course, we're freely sharing it with the world. All of the details covered in this presentation can be found on the site that I created in honor of Marcel's work, marcelvogel.org. Just like a sponge. Okay. Now, we get into the heavy stuff. The crystal science. The following is from Una, who is the emissary for the Intergalactic Confederation, whose understanding of the science of crystals is 20,000 years more advanced than the Pleiadians, who are approximately 300 more years advanced than us on Earth. Una says, quartz is a transponder by nature. It connects to the points on the grid of space. It vibrates not only on the lattice of space, but also on the lattice of time. Your science will soon discover this. Quartz is the highest state of solid matter before state of light. That is why quartz can heal tissue. Jen Han says, Vogel cut crystals cut in perfect alignment with the grid of the lattice are a surgical tool to operate in the fabric of space-time and universal consciousness. Besides the vertical alignment of the C-axis, it must be also aligned laterally with a 6-sided hexagonal core, with the termination angles of approximately 51.843 and 60 degrees. In honor of Dr. Marcel Vogel's pioneering work and the new information graciously shared by Jen Han Eredyon, we have designated this type of cut in order to differentiate it from standard Vogel cut crystals as a, quote, Vogel-Eredyon cut crystal. Why the 51.843? Some people call it the 52 to round it out. This is the more precise. Quote, this is a ratio that acts as a transponder. It is dynamic geometry. Some shapes, just because of their proportions, naturally affect the holographic structure of the matrix. We use this specific pyramidal ratio to build our frill generators. Well, why the 60-degree angle? Quote, it is because the sender angle must be in resonance with the geometry of the holographic matrix that is the receiver. And if you'll note that all angles of a tetrahedron are 60 degrees, which forms the fundamental structure of the tetrahedral fractal geometry of the matrix that we're in. Interestingly, Tony Rodriguez knows this one. The pyramidion on top of an Egyptian obelisk is set at an angle of, interestingly, 60 degrees. Part 4, modifying the matrix of reality. Jen had once said to me, quote, I was told the mission you have chosen consists in teaching the Terrans how you can change their reality. You always knew this. Teach them how to activate the vortex and how to modify the holographic matrix, unquote. So, I'm here presenting to all of you the following. This must have been some kind of past life little. We've asked lots and lots of questions, and this is one question I asked that was forbidden. The following information was previously forbidden by the Prime Directive to be shared based on a question I asked. Jen Han Eredyon was able, Thor Han Eredyon was able to obtain special authorization from the Galactic Federation of Worlds in order to answer this question. And Jen Han answered that question. It had to do with this singularity vortex that's in between the lattice structure of between the triad opposites. He says, quote, it works by finding the phase conjugation node inside the crystal, by projecting inwards the geometrical shapes of the two opposite points like a mirror. There is the vortex singularity of the crystal. Focus your thought and energy just there, and you may project your consciousness to anywhere you wish in this universe and to other universes, to other densities, other dimensions. Anything is accessible in space, dimension, and time. This is great power, Elena. Elena is relaying this. It is very important information. I am honored to be allowed to share this with you. Now, I am very honored to be allowed to share the science with all of you. Jen Han says, the ratio of the hexagonal, pentagonal, multi-layered blueprint applied to a living organism will produce cellular evolution, plants, humans, stars, and so on. This ratio is a key to life and is also represented in the blueprint you know as the flower of life. Those who understand the secret geometry of the flower of life can create universes and life forms to populate them. Here you can see on the illustration, you can see the hexagonal, pentagonal, you can see the 60-degree angle and the 51.843 all embedded within the flower of life pattern. And our DNA is a double helix with hexagonal, pentagonal geometries. The hexagonal-pentagonal relationship between the 60 and 51.843 degree angles. Notice the hexagon is related to the 60-degree angle, and notice the pentagon, which is related to the golden mean ratio, is the receptive end of the 51.843 degree angle. The two frequencies of vortex spin are based on the different angles of inclination of the terminations. When you have a pyramid form it creates a vortex. And depending on the angle of the pyramid will depend on the frequency, spin of that vortex. Jen Han says, the two dynamics counter-rotate and meet at the vortex singularity. Because of this counter-rotating dynamics, the vortex is opened by phase conjugation of the two frequencies. At the same frequency rate, the dynamics cancel. You need a difference in the speed rate in order to create a dynamic for the experience to tend toward perfection. And since nothing in this universe ever reaches the absolute point of perfection, the universe is alive through the dynamics of evolution. This is how the Pleiadians convert etheric energy into physical reality. The 51.843 angle geometry transpawned the etheric energy, and the 60-degree angle geometry imprints it into the holographic matrix of the universe. This is a great network. This is how we implement etheric energy into physical reality. And this is how the liminal geometric point of transfluxation allows the intentions of consciousness to imprint a geometric thought pattern. Thus, we call this the Reality Transflux Modulator. This is a Kirlian photograph that captured the double coil torsion field formed by the pyramidion. Elaine and I showed this to Jen Han, and he said, quote, a pyramidion creates a frill vortex. Frill is the etheric energy. The vortex you depict in this visual is the etheric energy harvested by the pyramidion. The double influx of harvested energy in a mathematical ratio of the pyramidion generates a double-coiled torsion field. The two dynamics twirling in opposite directions creates a phase-conjugated tension that creates a singularity in the hologram, a convergence of infinite power. The eye of the crystal. This animation to visualize the counter-rotating dual torsion fields converging to create the phase conjugation node for the vortex singularity, or eye of the crystal, was done by the highly talented Steph Zach, Elena's sister. To activate and open the vortex eye of the crystal, it needs to be piezoelectrically stimulated. Nothing happens. And its two vortices come together, and nothing happens until you open the vortex. And this is how you open it. It needs to be activated piezoelectrically. This creates a dynamic reaction between the two polarities of the charge triads of the lattice structure and creates an exponential reaction that triggers a singularity portal. Keep in mind, quartz is not only in this dimension, it's in all dimensions at a time. So when you stimulate it, it's going across the spectrum of dimensions. Piezoelectric physical or electronic pulse pressure is applied to both sides of the vortex singularity. Now the crystal can have inclusions in it, but you want to avoid them in the vortex forming area, which is the red area there. Now you can do this with your finger pressure. Conscious visualization from your mind sends electrical impulses through your fingertips. The squeeze pressure from your fingers at the area of the eye needs not be very strong to momentarily open the vortex. So every time your thought, and you project your thought and you squeeze with your fingers just slightly, it opens the vortex just momentarily to be able to imprint into the singularity. Now, Elaine and I, primitively, we set up, using candle holders and plumbing parts, our crystals to keep the vortex, the eye of the vortex, continuously open to operate hands-free by electronically pulsing 20 hertz the piezoelectric lattice with compression waves. The design has evolved. These are two current designs. One of our research associates in France has created a platform that holds the crystal properly, that much easier to create than the first revision. to create the reality modulator, or you can call it the Reality Transflux Modulator, as it is the liminal geometric point of transfluxation where you can imprint into the singularity. Now, when you're working with this technology, Jen Han says you can improve the effectiveness when you are in gamma brainwaves. It opens vortices in a person's mind, and anything becomes possible. It's interesting that the gamma state of meditation is expressed as a deep state of love for all beings. The pineal gland. The pineal gland vortex is what interfaces with the, wrong. The crystals in your pineal gland are calcium carbonate, which is organically produced by the tissues of the human body. These microcrystals generate an electromagnetic field, at the center of which is an interdimensional vortex for consciousness. The pineal gland vortex is what interfaces with the open vortex of the crystal. And by the way, all of us have that ability. The reptilians and the greys, they don't have access to this ability. The structure of the holographic matrix. Oh, water break. Uh-oh, better keep going here. The holographic matrix consists of an infinite number of dimensions or universes in the multiverse. We are currently in one of these dimensional spheres. Each dimensional sphere has multiple densities that emanates from creator source, of which we are all fractal of. The physical reality precipitates from source, which is the origin of all beings and matters. Source is dual in nature and creative. Since each of us are fractals of source, we're all also dual in nature and creative, and have the ability to create and change reality. In our particular dimensional sphere of reality, source projects itself in 12 densities. These can be thought of as harmonics or octaves on a scale of frequency. Each density emanating from source into physical manifestation has a frequency geometry or rate of oscillation, which is associated with a level of consciousness. The higher densities create the lower or subdensities down into physical manifestation. The lower densities could be visualized symbolically, as in this illustration, or in the outer hub of 12 concentric circles, with the 13th in the center being source. Therefore, what is affected or formed at a higher density affects or precipitates into formation of the lower densities. The lower densities do not affect or form into the higher densities. Know that there is no separation from all the densities from source, as they are all emanations from and are source. Source is at a level of perfection, and the universe tends toward this perfection. The higher a being's consciousness goes in density, the more that being resonates more with this perfection and with the frequency of love. As conscious beings in this dimension, we evolve through love, as love bridges us from the lower densities into the higher densities, closer to source. The infinite number of dimensions can be seen as bubble-like spheres, as Elena beautifully graphically illustrated in her presentation. They're all connected together based on the perfect geometry that stems from the blueprint pattern of creation called the flower of life. Yet, because these dimensional spheres exist in nonlinear space, they manifest as variables of this perfect geometry pattern in which the space in between and outside of these spheres exists an area that is called the void. The void is outside of time and space and is connected to all the dimensional spheres. Therefore, anything that happens within a void affects everything. This is a rough simulation that you saw on the first day by Elena Danan of the wobbly, bubble-like spheres of the multiverse of source that she visually witnessed on board the Nibiru with Prince Ea. The void. When consciousness interfaces with the singularity of the open vortex eye of the crystal, once it is activated, you access the void and it bridges to source. Source being at the highest density level in which a thought imprint can be crystallized forever to come into manifestation using the grid of the universe, because the void is outside of linear time, whereas a thought imprint would normally otherwise wither in time. The most powerful frequency key to access source through the void is love. the collective power of many minds. Elena and I, a couple of years ago, we did a show to put Jen Han's knowledge into action. It was titled Creating a Positive Timeline in Planetary Matrix Using a Crystal. We had over 1,700 people live. And as everyone projected with their pulse breath, a positive timeline vision, some with crystals, some with just simply using your minds. No special technology. A large spike was recorded on the Schumann resonance. I asked Jen Han, what we did had an effect to cause this, and he said, well, of course it had an effect. There is a ratio of the population that needs to be gathered to produce a visible disturbance, and you did it that day. The brain waves emitted by all living creatures on this planet are in interresonance with the ionosphere shell. A simple process for all of you, easy as 1, 2, 3, how to connect into the eye of the crystal to modify the holographic matrix. First, you want to prepare your target vision clearly in your mind's eye beforehand, of course. And then you want to sense, you can sense with your mind's eye, your pineal gland, the open vortex eye of the crystal with your mind's eye. Then, take a deep breath while holding your vision, and then project with loving intention to imprint into the open vortex eye of the crystal in sync together with your pulse breath. The imprint will then persist forever into the grid of the universe. Now, we're all creative. When we think, we're creating. And if you focus on something with such clarity, it comes into manifestation. But normally our thoughts just wither in time. With this Pleiadian technology, it changes that. We now have this Pleiadian reality shaping technology to use on our planet for beneficial purposes. It's important to know why love is important when using this type of consciousness-assisted technology. Dissonant thought forms are unable to transcend the densities into manifestation due to the matrix being in an ordered state of geometrical resonance, of which dissonance cannot attune to. So, audience participation. Okay. So now I'm inviting all of you in the audience with this knowledge and with your love of our beautiful planet Terra, participate in modifying the holographic matrix within the singularity of the open vortex eye of the crystal for the most benevolent outcome for all beings. A beautiful golden age of a Star Trek-like world is already our future destiny. We will simply be assisting its acceleration into our timeline reality by this action. Of course, we can do this activity without a crystal. But as Jen Han once said, quote, when you're familiar with this activity, you do it without a crystal. But why not use these tremendously powerful tools at our disposal, unquote. So I am providing for all of us up here on stage a tremendously powerful crystal tool we're calling a Reality Transflux Modulator, whose vortex I have now activated and is powering up. Compression waves are being sent across the eye that will keep the vortex open for all of us to connect into. The singularity of the void for imprinting a co-creative collective visualization together. So, I invite everyone to imagine, as you wish, that a beautiful positive timeline is already manifested on our planet, whereas the elements that have impeded humanity are no longer with any power to affect the billions of people on our planet. A new era of peace that is based on love and cooperation is now realized, where our culture has joined other peaceful cultures across the galaxy and benefit from the shared advanced knowledge and technologies for the most benevolent outcome for all beings. Okay, so now, with little effort, but with lots of confidence of your ability to create. Take a brief moment to clearly see this reality, or better, within your mind's eye. And when that vision is clear with your intention, you will connect with your consciousness to the vortex singularity, which is now open within this crystal. And then you will pulse your breath through your nostrils in sync with that projected vision into the open vortex eye of the crystal. Okay, everybody ready? With the love you have of our planet and all beings, from the vision in your mind's eye, and prepare to project that vision in sync with your pulse breath into the vortex eye of the crystal. Take a deep breath, and on the count of 3, pulse your breath and project your vision. 1, 2, 3. Give thanks that our collective vision is now imprinted forever into the grid of the universe to bring it into full manifestation into our dimensional sphere of reality. It's been my greatest honor to share this knowledge from another world with all of you. I wish to thank and acknowledge my dear friend and emissary of our planet, Elena Danan, who has graciously made these communication exchanges possible. I also wish to thank Danny Henderson for creating this conference to share this advanced galactic knowledge with everyone. Our brilliant science team of Chris Asone and Kent Noonan. Becky and Russell of Crystal Light and Sound, who have had their crystal cutters following the Vogel-Eredyon specification to make these incredible tools available. And with great gratitude to High Commander Jen Han Eredyon and the Galactic Federation of Worlds to authorize the receiving of this important information in accordance with the Prime Directive. And a very, very special thank you to our dear friend Jen Han Eredyon for all of the knowledge that he has shared with us. Thank you, everyone.